Welcome back to the Coin Lady channel. When is this cryptocurrency going to the moon? Is a question I'm asked frequently in the comments section. When will the price of XRP explode? Yeah, you should look around the world and observe what's happening, because it's all building to the end. The current monetary system is, in my opinion, in a lot of difficulty, you know. In this discussion, we'll spend some time discussing this topic. Let's check it out. Bank of England's Deputy Governor thinks the digital pound might save people during a bank run. At a time of instantaneous bank runs, the Deputy Governor of the Bank of England thinks the CBDC is a good place to keep your money. Now, I'm wondering if they plan to instigate immediate bank runs to push a CBDC, like in an emergency case, which is what I think the United States is going to need to have to usher in a CBDC because no one is ever going to vote for it. The majority of the time, governments have bailed out banks on behalf of a substantial portion of the population. The banking system is broken and money is stuck in failing institutions. And what I think is going to happen with the banks is the Bailin Option is going to happen here in the US. Everything is in disarray, so it's only a matter of time before it all collapses. Learn more about the most respectable bank robbers in the world. Banks in Lebanon have been targets of a surge of armed robberies as the country's economy collapses, but these heists have followed a very peculiar pattern. The bank's customers have turned themselves in, demanding withdrawals of their own money. Since so many countries are economically dependent on the US dollar, most people still refuse to think that something like this could ever happen there. In their minds, the value of the US dollar could never decrease. They also have a lot of faith in the banking system and think the government will never let them down. The United States administration is actively plotting against its own people. The financial institutions could hardly care less. Banking institutions are just concerned with their own interests. The currency in the US will eventually fall. Time will tell. It relies on debt and unfulfilled promises for support. Alarm bells should be sounding if a large number of banks are closing their doors at once. Almost a dozen branches of Wells Fargo and Bank of America will be closing. But it's not just them. The Pittsburgh location of BNY Mellon will be its last. Increasingly frequent bank closures in New Jersey have created banking deserts in South Jersey. Throughout the last 3 years, New Jersey has lost 279 bank locations, or 10% of the total. The Federal Reserve Bank of Philadelphia issued a report showing that this development raised the prospect that certain consumers might be unable to use even the most fundamental of banking services. Now, I'm interested in hearing your thoughts on this, because I can only make out two possibilities. First, banks are getting rid of their smaller branches in preparation for a possible CBDC or because they are experiencing financial problems and need to cut costs by eliminating some locations. There are only those two possibilities, at least in my mind. But again, if you trust these financial institutions so much, why are they shutting down so many of their local branches? Given that I could only show you a sample. There's more going on than that, too. I think a serious issue is just bubbling under the surface now. The rising cost of living may have a disproportionate impact on people living in rural areas, especially when it comes to food, gas, medical care, and home heating. However, changes in rural prices aren't taken into account. The CPI is the standard inflation measure in the United States. How often have we heard that inflation is declining, only to see no evidence of this? As for 2023, I remain confident that inflation will spike even further. It's easy to think of a head of lettuce as an illustration of this. Several times in the previous few months, the price of a regularly $1 item has reached as high as $5. Some stores may have marked up other things to cover the cost of the expensive lettuce, but most of them kept with the original inflated price. Simply put, we are market takers. According to one store owner, that seems like a more trustworthy method to conduct business. Despite this, the Consumer Price Index, the most popular instrument for measuring inflation in the US, does not cover the groceries at most rural stores in Redbud, Illinois. Only counties with a metropolitan or micropolitan area are included in BLS surveys. No county is included unless it has a city with 10,000 residents or more. So, it is not accurate to say that inflation is decreasing everywhere. It's just starting to rain in some areas, those areas included, and I have a feeling it's only going to get worse from here. With mortgage interest rates at 6.71%, demand is at a 28-year low. Also, I anticipate the interest rates to rise further. While most people went out and bought homes last year despite the fact that the realtors had duped them, I expect the Fed to hike rates again in March. There is a severe lack of suitable homes in the country. There just aren't adequate dwellings for everyone. Buying at the peak of the real estate market is mandatory. But you, being a crypto expert, knew better. You get the bottom of the barrel when you buy something. It's likely that you'll want to buy a home at rock bottom prices when the housing bubble finally bursts, which I think is inevitable. Regular meetings about CBDC are held by the US Treasury and the Biden administration. As a CBDC will inevitably happen, I think they're holding regular meetings to plan it. There will be a release of that soon. I think a severe liquidity crisis could be the catalyst for the emergency needed to launch a CBDC without a vote. The private cryptocurrency ecosystem would be crowded out, and national security would be bolstered if the Federal Reserve issued its own digital money. Economists use the term crowding out to describe the phenomenon whereby more government spending and investment reduce or eliminate similar activity in the private sector. According to Singh, investments in private crypto firms like Bitcoin would be crowded out by investments in CBDCs issued by a central bank, thus Bitcoin won't even be a possibility in the future. As time goes on and a CBDC is implemented, I predict that more and more people will start using it. The wealthy may have more time to prepare for it than the rest of us. But if Bitcoin ends up being a threat to the CBDC, they will eliminate it immediately. The present financial crisis in Nigeria, Africa's most populous country and largest economy, has highlighted the significance of cryptocurrencies for the country's roughly 219 million people. And this is what we find. So, it seems that people aren't interested in using the CBDC. Naira people have showed little enthusiasm for the government's debut of a central bank digital currency, and instead have turned to widely accepted cryptocurrencies despite a restriction on their use. How often do you really think about things? Forcing something out of a country just increases demand for it. The vast majority of people wouldn't give cryptocurrency a second thought if it weren't illegal. But that's the situation in Nigeria, and it might be the case everywhere. Perhaps using crypto will be our only option for evading CBDCs once they become widespread. What happens next is something we have to watch out for. Blockchain Association CEO Kristen Smith stated in a Bloomberg interview on February 22 that despite the incredibly long process and regulators stepping in the interim, the sector wants US lawmakers to lead crypto legislation. The president of a prominent US business group advocating for crypto has suggested that the US Congress take charge of the industry's regulatory framework. How many more individuals will have to call on Congress to regulate crypto before action is taken? Because at the moment, everyone in the cryptocurrency industry seems to be pointing fingers at FTX and treating cryptocurrency as if it were the worst thing ever, but in reality, it was just one guy who pulled them down. In this case, Sam Bankman-Fried the bad guy? Going forward, we need investor-friendly rules that also benefit the market as a whole. For this reason, Gary Gensler should be removed from his position as Architect General by the Congress. Take Gary aside and show him who's boss. They need to take care of crypto laws. There will be a significant spread in the cost of various digital tokens in 2023. Utility tokens having a call on cash flows, as reported by Bank of America, outperform meme and governance tokens. I'm glad to hear that Ripple is popular at Bank of America. They are eager to get their hands on that. However, they anticipate 2023 to be the year of utility and a divergence in token prices. Also, a change was in the air. Everyone seems to be talking about the crypto's practical applications and how they are linked to the fourth industrial revolution, which I think is already underway. Although it began in 2011, I think we're now seeing it pick up steam now. Bitcoin presently vs. the Nasdaq between 1998 and 2002. As of right now, you don't have to look at it. Considering this and the current state of affairs, it's easy to see why many people fear Bitcoin's value may soon plummet dramatically. And I think if it's because of a utility-driven cryptos, maybe Bitcoin will be obsolete in the future. If Ripple prevails in its battle against the SEC, perhaps Bitcoin's price will reverse while demand for its utility increases. In all honesty, I have no idea if it is going to occur. The weakening of the US dollar could also lead to a blow-off peak for Bitcoin, as some have predicted. Nonetheless, I believe that crypto is undergoing a dramatic shift that will lead it to practical applications. Adoption is a slow process. Although the internet has had many failures, the situation is now much better. The current crypto market meltdown is reminiscent of the bursting of the dot-com boom. We just saw the end of guesswork. Developers who focus on practical solutions would set the pace. And recall how many people wrote off the internet as a transitory novelty before suddenly realizing its potential. It has finally found a practical application. Money was made because to it. Companies made use of it to make international purchases of goods and services. The same thing is suddenly going to occur with crypto. Currently, crypto is dead, but I believe this will change when the focus shifts to practical applications. When it happens, it will be the beginning of a very lengthy cycle. That's the trend I anticipate for all ISO coins, but especially XRP and XLM. Due of their practicality, they could compete on their own merits. In the event that Ripple is victorious over the SEC, all doubt will be put to rest. That has the potential to reshape future discourse on cryptography itself. There will eventually be only a small number of cryptocurrency options. When that happens, it's likely that what's left won't be able to be recovered. In addition, I continue to be pessimistic about Bitcoin's long-term viability, since I can't see anything other than a lack of utility driving the future value of the currency. The legendary outpost where Bitcoin will serve as the sole medium of exchange. Do not even think that way, we are smarter than that. Investors in public services, that was us. And on that note, I'm going to end this video. As always, I appreciate your attention. I value your interest in my uploads and thank you for watching them. Please join us again in the subsequent one. See you later, bye.